welcome you to Cinema, Life, and Everything. And first of all, we've had a little chat beforehand, but how are you today?
No, thank you for having me. Yeah, I was very excited to sit down and talk with you. You're definitely somebody who I think our conversation will just, we always have fun and do get
Yeah.
deep, and so I thought it'd be definitely worthwhile. And today, how am I today? Yeah, good. A little flustered, I must admit. We were just mentioning how we're in this industry, but in life in general as well, it's all or nothing, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's you get your quiet periods, and then when you get pick up momentum, it just begets itself, and it picks up more, and you're like, when is it going to end? But like you mentioned as well before, it's why we do it. It's why we love our job and our life, because we get to, it's so unique, and I have to be grateful for it.
That's the thing. Even when it feels a little bit overwhelming, especially like as we were both mentioning as well, when the ubiquitous self tape comes in, just when you're like, I have literally no time to record this, but
Literally.
it's part of the joy. I think well, I'd love you to tell the audience a bit more about yourself. But I remember you saying you've worked the civilian jobs and stuff as well as I have, and having that regularity is wonderful, but also part of the reason why we're creatives as well, I guess. So I don't want to put words in your mouth. I would love you to tell the audience a bit more about yourself, and also how you feel about that, like the regular job versus why you chose a creative path.
Well, yeah, absolutely. Well, my name's Ruggero Barlaba, and I'm an actor based in London.
Mhm.
I was born in Bradford, but I grew up in Bermuda.
Nice.
So there's a bit of a mix there. So my accent got heavily Americanized, but it's got just the hints of Yorkshire as well that come in there, which is not a usual mix. So when I meet people for the first time, they're always allures them into trying to figure out what my accent is. So that's always good. But from my blessings, I've been exposed to so many cultures growing up as well. So that includes characters and accents and things that I would just pick up and observe. So I credit that a lot to like the reason me choosing this industry. Is just because I got to experience so much more of the human, I guess, condition.
Yeah.
And without belaboring the point, I ended up going to drama school at Guildford School of Acting, GSA, graduated around 2019. Since then, I've been working on predominantly theatre, but also we're getting into TV and film now, especially film. I've been doing a lot of short films over the course of the couple of years just gone. I just recently did a feature film, sci-fi thriller, directed by Matthew Cannon and written story by him too. It's called Revolution X, and it's about this like sci-fi world where there's a future in which there's an organization, and even organization comes back to alter the past to change the future, which is a tale we've heard before, but this one takes a more grounded, personable approach because it focuses on the present moment, so it's much more real to this kind of reality that we know and love, just with hints of sci-fi in there to get the plot. It's thoroughly enjoyable, and we did some fight sequences at the end, so that's circulating around festivals at the moment, for which we won a lot of accolades. And it would take too many to mention them, but one in particular. Well, that's not me being boastful. I
No,
just
it's good. I mean, geez, I think that's something we can talk about in a minute, actually. But go on, keep going.
yeah. Well, no, it's just a credit to the production team because they're literally working their ass off to get this off the ground and to meet as many people. And they're actually working on the next feature film, which, touch wood, all goes well, has two named actors in the lead roles, and it's gonna be a big one. And we're currently writing the sequel as well, um, which is phenomenal. And I won Best Supporting Actor in the New York Film Festival, which was an absolute pleasure to to go through, and I definitely will attend the festival if I can. I'm gonna love going over there. And yeah, I've got another couple short films doing their festival runs. Very proud of them, and I'm in the middle at the moment of writing a lot. So I took the time and liberty to take some, I don't know, thoughtfulness into writing, creating your own opportunities, collaborating with the people around you, because you can get so fixated on the next job and when the next job may be coming in that you may forget that you have every right to just simply start making good stories with good people, and
Mm.
And regardless of whether they get exposure, that's a community you're building, that's a craft you're building, that's just a career, I guess, in a sense. Regardless of people see it or not, you're honing in your skills and you're working it. But that being said, that's an ideal life. If you were to be able to be working 9 to 5 constantly on set for a TV show, who knows what your, specific goals are. That's the absolute dream. And in the meantime, whilst we're creating that into our own reality, we have to support ourselves somehow,
Yeah.
because a lot of jobs can be overworked and underpaid, but because of our passion for the craft and for the industry and for the jobs, we do them, because like I said, it's an opportunity to do what you love, meet amazing people, and who knows where that may lead. So that's part of the joy of being an actor too. But to support yourself is very important.
Mm.
It's definitely something that is sort of teached, but I feel like it's only touched upon. But people know you have to get, a muggle job, as some people like to call it. A surviving actor's job. I don't like these terms just because I think
No.
they undermine, what we're trying to do here, which is building a life in incredibly hard industry. But for some examples that I've done in the past, well, this is, due to coronavirus as well, that took a big hit. And so when I actually moved to London in that gap between the two lockdowns,
Yeah,
which I
yeah.
saw an opportunity, and I was like, get in there. So I did. And because so few kind of industries were open at the time, um, I managed to get myself a job at Rococo Chocolates, selling chocolates on to
Mm.
Chelsea. It was an opportunity to get some income and pay the rent, um, which um, which I never regret as well. Like, I've done so many different things. Um, and stop me if I'm talking too
No,
much,
no,
but
no. There's a couple of points I want to raise, but please don't go on your tangents. I like to. That's why I do this podcast.
listen, you invited me here, and that's my forte. I just go on tangents. So if any time you say I gotta quit there anyway, but yeah, I do. I love to go on tangents, but to the point, I'm very lucky because I actually found a very niche side hustle,
Mm.
that is, something that's very flexible and creative, and um and it is lucrative in the sense that I can support my lifestyle whilst focusing as much as possible in my acting. And that is coffee styling. I do coffee styling like a drink stylist,
Mm.
like a food stylist would make a burger for McDonald's. I make all the coffee for like Costa Coffee, Pret a Manger, Nespresso, Starbucks. Um, and
Nice.
so every image you see when you're out on the streets or in the billboards or in the menus in the shops all around the world are the drinks that I've made and they took a picture of. So that's a cool claim to fame.
That's amazing, mate.
Yeah,
How
it's
did,
it's
how did
so
you
neat.
manage? Sorry, we've got to talk about films in a little while, but how did you end up with that skill? Like knowing that, yeah, I'm gonna have very photogenic coffee.
Honestly, I'm telling you, it's a very long story, so I'll try and abridge it as much as possible.
Okay.
So that's a podcast in and of itself. But
Okay.
basically, I was a barista part-time during uni to make some pocket money. So I was with this cafe for like 6 years, and they do a thing called Barista of the Year, which is a competition around the world to see who's the best barista. Um, so I did that competition back in 2019, and of which I won. That was just after graduating drama school. So I became best barista of the world 2019 for a second, my best specialty drink, where we all had to create our own coffees. So I can tell you all about that another time. But from that, I worked at the global innovation team for Costa Coffee for 3 months, head office, which I didn't particularly enjoy. I wanted to make sexy coffee, and that was my
Mm,
whole thing. I was like, you know what? I just want to make sexy coffee that just looks so beautiful, because I really paid attention to like the artistry that is making coffee and making latte art and things like that. Once you understand the why behind something that you do, I feel like you can understand the beauty of it, and then
mm.
you get deeper and deeper into that world. So I delved into the world of coffee, and Um, and without belaboring the point again, um, I'd be very passionate about making very good coffee and how it looks. So I asked them, do you have any kind of roll? Can I make a roll? They're like, no, it doesn't exist. But we just get any old barista to come on these set shoots that we do for like marketing campaigns. So I said, yeah, okay, I'll come by. I went by, spoke to some food stylists, and they said, hey, listen, you got something here. We're constantly being asked to do coffee shoots we can't do. You should
Mm,
you should take yourself on employment, be freelance, and start doing some more shoots. So I did, and it just expanded from there. My knowledge, my experience, my um, connections, and it's really been something quite special. And I am super passionate about it, but I do also think it has so many parallels to the acting world.
mm.
You're delivering a product or things for a set in
Yeah,
studio, and you have to be in a super calm, relaxed, creative space to create it. I found so many parallels. So if you want, we could do a copy and acting podcast,
we're
and I
gonna
could
have to
talk.
do a coffee. I mean, if we could be
We're
drinking,
gonna
we'll have to do another one. If we could be drinking coffee while we're doing it as well, I'd be very,
100%.
very much up for that as well.
We have to
But
do that.
one thing before we get onto your choices of films, I do need to ask you about this as well, because something you brought up about, and it really something I'd love to touch upon quickly. When people have accolades, they almost feel funny about being mentioning them, and I know there's always that line where people feel they're crossing into self-aggrandizing or just being very self-proclaiming. But also I think there is a real need to be able to, you can still be humble but still be proud of what you've achieved, and I'd love to like hear your thoughts on that a little bit as well, where that line of like being not being able to sort of be proud of what you've done.
Yeah, I completely agree. There's definitely that. Well, I even felt it then. So speaking about mine accolades, it's like
Mm.
I think it's definitely culturized. Is that a word? It
Yeah,
is
yeah,
now.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's in the culture where I guess flaunting seems to be a bit taboo. But
Mm.
in this industry, that is, like you said, something you have to do and be comfortable with. You have to sell yourself because, like I said about the coffee, and I'm going to be using so many coffee metaphors today now because we had that discussion. But you're a product at the end of the day, and you need to sell that product. It can be any product, ketchup, it could be sweets. You need to be clear on what that product is for people to essentially buy it. And it's so funny. I experienced something like that firsthand when I went to a screening of a film um, that was like BFI. It was in the BFI and had some credible name acting. And I was fortunate enough because I worked with the director on another project. She invited me to her um, screening, and so it had so many um, incredibly high in the food chain people there,
Mm.
for lack of a better phrase. I think Nina Gold was there, and there was like Ben Whishaw was there, and things
Wow.
like that. And so it was a great crowd, and I was actually in a good place in myself, so I was able to stand on my own 2 feet and just simply talk to these people. But what I seemed to notice, to get to my point, was as soon as you met somebody, they would say, "Hey, how are you?" Oh, no, no, not how are you. Who are you?
Yeah.
They wouldn't ask
Oh,
they would be like they wouldn't say it as it would be no animosity or malicious intent whatsoever. It's not like, who are you, right? It was like, who are you? And I knew in that instant when they asked me that, they were asking for something that was prepared to sell yourself, as in like, I'm this, I do this, I create this, I've won this, blah blah blah. Almost like I knew because I saw other people do it at the same time. And I was like, wow, that's fascinating. Just the philosophy that was in that room
yeah.
was and I explained myself, but I feel like because it's not something that I've trained, speaking about my accolades, when asked in an environment like that, you kind of go, oh yeah, well, that's a good question. And you start to
Yeah.
figure it out on the spot. Whereas other people were like, boom, 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 boom. I know who I am. I know what I've done. I know where I'm going.
Interesting.
And also you could notice the time that they gave you was proportional to that. So the better, the more interesting, the more they value you, the more time they'd give you. Because, and I stress, it didn't feel malicious
No, no,
whatsoever.
no, no.
It's simply a sense of they're on another wavelength, and then their time is precious, you know.
Mm. That's super interesting. Well, thank you for that little peek behind the curtain. I really enjoyed that. But right, let's get on to the film choices then. Since it is
Yeah,
cinema,
let's
life,
do it.
and everything. So, what are your three film choices? I've written them down as well in case.
Yeah, you got them down. So I
Mm.
had One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Yep.
Interstellar,
Yep.
and The Last Samurai.
Amazing. And an amazing three choices. Where would you like to start?
Well, I mean, we could go chronologically, I guess, in terms of when they
Okay.
were made. I don't know why that just came to mind. Um, so I guess One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest would be the first to
Let's
to
start off
to
with old
get
Jackie
into.
Boy then. So yeah, one flew over. I mean, three absolute sterling choices here. So why one flew over the cuckoo's nest? What speaks to it about you?
Um, well, Jack Nicholson's performances, especially back then,
Mm,
he had a series of phenomenal films, and for me, I related mostly to the surrealism of the piece.
mm,
I'm somebody who's quite expressionate myself, and I can go to heights of ecstasy to the depths of despair all within 24 hours. Um, and that's just because I feel very deeply, and
mm,
I'd always and performing that has to be is quite niche because even then Jack Nicholson does it very well. He goes to those surreal places emotionally and he creates fantastic performances and he lives in them and he is just simply being and creates the whole world and the stories he tells is phenomenal. I mean, I don't know if you've heard the story of when it was I think it was The Departed when he was on was it Departed where he was with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, and Ray Winstone. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's that film. But anyway, there's a scene where he's on the beach, and I know we're going on to a different film now.
No,
I
it's
told
okay.
you,
It's okay. We're talking
tangent.
about Jack Nicholson. It's all right.
Yeah, we'll circle back. And well, Jack Nicholson, yeah, Jack Nicholson was on the beach, and he's executing an individual, and he said to the director on the day before the take, he said, "I think it'd be really funny." Because he wasn't meant to say anything at all. I think it'd be really funny if after she fell, I say something like, she fell funny, in the sense that the character's been doing this for such an amount of time. He has uh, almost a disregard for the actual doing of it and is
Mm,
paying attention to other things, kind of thing like that. And well, he did it in the take. And then he added more. He went to the director and he added more. Anyway, my point of that is that I know Jack Nicholson has always said a good actor should aspire to be a good writer because I guess they
yeah,
complement
yeah.
each other and you'll be able to see good writing when it comes to you. Um, and then that made me think about his spontaneity in performance as well. He's very spontaneous and that's something I admire in performances.
Mm,
So, and in that, I mean, there's loads of fantastic characters in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. And I also heard as well that Jack Nicholson had a collection of actors in his, I guess, community or his close circle that he brought on board to One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. So a lot of the actors that were playing, I think Danny DeVito's one of them. Do you know those
yeah.
the supporting actors? Jack Nicholson helped to get them on to
Oh, wow.
the film.
And it's such an amazing cast as well, like Louise Randall, and you've got Christopher Lloyd, a very young Christopher Lloyd in it as well.
I know, it's fantastic
Yeah,
to see
it's some
looking back.
Nurse Ratchet, Ratchet, just
Ratchet.
yeah, unbelievable sort of performance, and just the 70s for me are always like an incredible era of cinema anyway, but just the amount of tension and how, like you said about the depths of despair to the heights of ecstasy, how even within a scene it can go from comedy to very dramatic realism in a few seconds. And we should really mention Brad Dourif as well, who's
Oh yeah,
absolutely amazing in it as well.
yeah. Stellar performances in that film. Um, and you were there with them. You were there
Mm,
with them, and yeah, it's incredible to watch and inspiring as well because these are some of the earliest and simplest almost performances It's simple storylines, it's grounded,
Yeah.
but still with that elevated, I guess level, not level of acting, but I guess method of acting.
Mm.
Because with Jack Nicholson and also Al Pacino, I feel anyway, there's a level of extremism in their performances. Al Pacino
Mm.
likes to shout and a great ass, Al Pacino likes
Hooah!
to, I'm out of order, you're out of order.
Yeah.
So it's very much a case of levels of, that was what made him famous and what made him, I
Mm.
guess, a top actor. But he's also much like all those greats at the time. They were training in methods. They had methods. They had, they're grafting. You see these, movies that come out that just skyrocket them into the stardom. But these guys still have been working since young,
Yeah.
And with any actor that's made it, well, most actors, there are some exceptions, the lucky few or um, the unlucky few in regard of how deep you want to get into your craft. But
Mm.
you you circle back to their life and they've been working for quite some time to get them into the state that they are. It good takes a good amount of time in a particular craft, whatever that may be, to master it.
Yeah. And yeah, and also as well, I think like from what you were saying, obviously the performances of Jack Nicholson and the like are incredible. But would you find that like there was a lot of great films with a lot of great actors in that time? Why would you say this one for you? Were any of the themes that resonated with you at all of the film, or?
Yeah, I have to admit, I've always liked the idea of performing a character who goes to those extremes of just
Mm.
the mental capacity or just the psychosis, psychological thrillers or anything of the sort, especially like when Split came out and James McAvoy did the Split personality
Oh
to
wow,
just,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what I mean? That's something I could just dream of doing myself. So something I really connect to. And yeah, I mean, I played Equus back before drama school, Alan in Equus. And he's a character who's, got this kind of mental fixation on this religious entity that is equine. So it's like those characters that go to like just the extremes. Um, I tend to enjoy the storytelling of it because that's something I wish I could perform.
Mm.
But it's very hard to do that at the beginning of your career because specificity, I think, is important. Like we
Yes.
mentioned earlier, with regards to you being essentially a product. Again, I don't like to call it that. I don't like to think myself as a product, but in layman's terms, I guess you could simplify it to that analogy. But to be as specific as possible also comes with, I guess, the trend nowadays. It's trending to be supernatural, not supernatural, sorry, incredibly natural.
Yeah, 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 yeah. The naturalistic performance. Yeah, exactly.
Naturalistic performances to the point where they hire non-actors and things like that.
Mm.
Um, where now it's getting to a point for that naturalism is favored over I guess grand performance or like that kind of
Mm.
stuff. You still get it, but more I think more so with the independent films, A24, um, you know, The Whale that just came out was I thought was phenomenal. But
Do
yeah,
you
anyway.
think as well that I mean I would argue like that or not I would but date I know you're pretty much saying this as well, but a timeless performance is a timeless performance. You can see certain trappings of every era, from a Brando to a De Niro to a Pacino, as you mentioned, but this doesn't like to I don't know, for me, someone who's absolutely smashing out of the park at the moment is like a Paul Mescal, but each of these
Mm,
each of these actors in their own way. I've not even you mentioned any female actors, but each of these performers in their own way have their own way of bringing a truth and authenticity to their performances, which make them last and timeless to a degree as well.
I completely agree. I completely
Mm.
agree, which is why Um, it's so funny. You should mention that. It's why I've actually just shifted my own perspective in my own performances. I've
Mm.
become much more, and it's helped me tenfold um, because of that grand nature. I feel like drama school kind of ingrained this into me in a way is the theatrical performance. So to focus on those natural performances, which I can get a plethora of examples for now because it's very contemporary. But even back in Orson Welles' time, he was incredibly contemporary in his delivery. He was the first of his kind to just be so natural
Mm.
behind the camera. And I feel like that's something that I've now started to shift my focus on. Be present, just be natural and instinctual. So I can still follow my instincts, but the overall encompassing performance is simply being and natural, and that comes with imagining and daydreaming. So it's so many, it's multifaceted, but it's
It's finding the
beautiful.
language that gets you to be, I think, finding you the moment that you feel that you can access the truest version of what that character is doing and being like you keep mentioning spontaneity, which I completely agree with as well. Nothing
Yeah,
worse than a performance that's on rails, you know.
yeah, 100%, 100%.
Right. Do you have a favourite scene in the One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest at all? Or is it the whole thing?
The whole thing generally is
Yeah,
is
it's pretty
incredible.
much
One,
flawless, really.
I know, honestly, I, the one scene that might spring to mind is when, well, I guess, oh, here we go.
We have the 10. We're all right.
10 minutes. With the big gentleman that came in that helped him escape,
Yes.
and when they're alone together at the nighttime, that scene for me is is real touching as well.
I
Yeah,
mean, and that's a wonderful thing. I mean, we talk about the grand performances of Jack Nicholson, and everyone remembers the Here's Johnny, or the bit when he's sort of like the basketball scene in the film as well, where Jack is really playing the character of Jack Nicholson. But then,
yeah,
the quiet moments, the thing. I like the 70s performance because even like an Al Pacino character where he's known, as you mentioned, for the hoo-ah and and all the crazy stuff.
yeah,
There are moments of such quiet intimacy that they are able to portray that
mm,
naturalistic acting. And because they do these grandiose performances, and then usually in the same film, they will marry it into these smaller, quiet, fragile moments, the vulnerability. So
yeah,
the performative stuff almost has a reason because it's an everyday human acting, trying to present a version of themselves that underneath they're quite frightened and vulnerable. And in those moments, gives them the balance to be able to show that in one film as opposed to everything on a straight
yeah.
line of authenticity.
So true. And even Al Pacino himself, there's a clip on YouTube you can find. It's of his audition for The Godfather. And
Mm,
he does a take, and then the director's like, Al, can you just, not do so much kind of thing?
yeah.
And he's like, what would I do? I thought that was fantastic. What do you mean? Do you mean? But also, you can see just in that how much integrity he has as an artist at that stage in his life. For him to, I know he's being a bit like, I guess, yeah, do what the director says, try a different route, and so you have to be open. But such a deep belief he has in his own choices.
Yes. 100%. Exactly. And being able to explain why he makes those choices as well, which is, I guess, another thing sort of similar in mindset to what you were saying with Jack Nicholson being a good writer. Have the courage of your convictions, but also understand. I mean, that's what writing is, right?
Yeah.
Understanding the why. We got through One for the Cuckoo's Nest. So, where, if we're going chronologically, it would be The Last Samurai with Mr. Cruz, one of my favorite films of all time. So, I'm interested to hear why you love this
So
one so much as well.
honestly, what's not to love about it? I mean,
Yeah.
stuff basically. Um, I am actually a huge fan of Tom Cruise's earlier work, all of his work in particular, but in his earlier work, I think he was really doing some awesome stuff, acting
Mm.
wise, performance wise. Um, and I think a lot of people see him as the action star, but he
Runner,
was
yeah.
yeah, the runner. Yeah, I swear it's in his contract he has to run in every movie.
I could believe that. I so can believe that.
Oh man. Apparently he's a sweet guy, I've got a lot of friends who've worked with him, and he takes the cast out for dinner, and he buys them some great stuff, and the free skydiving lessons.
the way I look at it, I don't think you can get to that level and maintain that level if you've not got a certain level of humility and love about life and people. Again, I completely agree. Born on the 4th of July, Magnolia. The guy's an absolute
Magnolia.
powerhouse of a performance, but he's just very studious and very studied. So if he's going to be an action hero, he's going to be an absolute ultimate action hero. So it's whatever he turns his hand to, he's always sort of really gone in depth to. But I would say The Last Samurai is maybe the lovely, perfect mix of that flawed hero character acting
Yeah,
mixed in with some Kurosawa inspired kick-ass samurai action.
man. Honestly, I couldn't agree more. And the action is beautiful, and the story itself, and as well as it's of a broken man who he gets even more broken in order to heal again, and that's such a raw, primordial telling of it, unromanticized telling of it in such a beautiful film, visually and well, aesthetically, performance wise and story. But you, you get a visceral experience of his turmoil.
Mm.
They don't shy away from it. They don't cut to like, oh, you can tell he's you can see it in the room when wakes up in feudal Japan, and he's going through withdrawal symptoms. It's like, I love how they go so deep into a character and not afraid to show the flaws in order to redeem them in the end, which I feel like nowadays storytelling seems to neglect sometimes. They like to produce flawless characters for us
Yeah, no,
to
it's
love.
I completely agree. Give me 1 second. Sorry, hang about. My alarm is telling me it's time to turn off all technology. Hang about. Right, sorry about that. So
Couldn't hear it, so it's all good.
I forgot to turn off all technology alarm. There's a joke in there somewhere, but we'll cut that bit out.
Yeah,
But no, I completely agree about the hero's journey. It's important that they face obstacles, but there does seem to be quite a propensity or like a narrative at the moment that it almost seems like they want the heroes to be flawless. They start flawless, really sort of have everything they need to know, and then win everything at the end. So there seems to be like actually we were just talking about with vulnerability, being able to do a grand
Mm,
performance and then be able to show vulnerability.
yeah,
Tom Cruise's character to become complete has to start at a very low level and, like you say,
yeah,
go even lower before he manages to conquer his own demons.
yeah, absolutely. And couple that with the score by Hans Zimmer.
Oh, I got
Well,
Hans Zimmer just
produced by
smashes it
Hans
out of the
Zimmer.
park a lot of the time, but for me, that's actually one I tend to go to sleep to at night as well. I
Is
absolutely
it?
love that. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have I have a samurai tattoo on my back for a reason, mate.
Yes, Ultra fans.
Yeah, no, I
What
just
did you?
Oh, I think one thing that I loved about it as well, and I would have to look at the script writer for it, but even though I mean, let's be honest here, for a film to do well in the West, it has to have the Western star mixed into it. But I really think that film done a very good service of having a Japanese cast really able to espouse the values of the samurai and then explain it in a way to a Western audience without westernizing it too much or ruining the mythology either. I was very proud of how delicately the film handled that as well.
Yeah, I agree. And I think maybe, and this is just me hypothesizing here, but it just come to me and occurred to me that maybe because our character, our lead character, and a protagonist is going through a similar kind of exposure to the culture as we, the audience, are,
Mm.
perhaps it's more accessible to us as we start to understand the growth and openness to that reality and culture,
Well,
much
that
like the
that yeah,
protagonist,
I
maybe.
mean, that's such a good way of saying it as well. When you have like almost like a Luke Skywalker character as well. So when you have the innocent, for lack of a better term, going into a new world, you learn they can learn. So it stops exposition. You learn at the same time they do. It's a very good
Yeah,
point you make there as well. So, but instead of a Luke,
yeah, yeah,
instead of a Luke
definitely.
Skywalker in this one, we have a very badly drunk civil,
Yeah, yeah,
civil war veteran
I
suffering
love
quite
it.
badly.
Yeah, and I think again his performance was sensational. Um, he does give his all to his performances, and that's
Mm,
also something that I love to emulate in my performances. When I'm acting, is to just literally lay your heart out on the table with whatever you're doing, not being afraid to. Well, I'm a dramatic person and I'm very perf performative in terms of my language, but I was going to say willing to die for your craft, right? Die a little bit every time, as in like go that close to, danger of um instinctual acting.
mm.
Let go so much that you feels like, whoa, where did I go for a second? So you know how what they say, some of the best acting is when you can't ones you can't remember, performances that you can't
Yes.
remember. It's because you've gone so into it that you in free flow.
That's, I
And
mean, yeah, the flow, we talk about the flow state and stuff like that and why people go into it. But do you think that this is a lovely thing I'd like to ask you? So the idea that we're actually in control, where we have an idea of a thing we do every day, a performance, if you will, that gives us a certain result every day that we feel comfortable within that routine. But ultimately, acting gives us a chance to explore the what if. And the more you're
yeah,
not risk adverse, the more you are able not to do the usual routine, to not
yeah,
relax into comfortable responses, that you truly can access that flow state and go into places you wouldn't normally do, like almost forget yourself.
yeah, I agree. Yeah. Um, on that note, in terms of getting into free flow, I feel like what was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. Moving on.
No, sorry, that was set up so beautifully then about moving into free flow and forgetting yourself. I was like, oh, there's going to be an epiphany here.
I thought
Maybe
it
it'll come
was. I
back a
thought
bit
it
later
was.
on.
I think I was just so into what you were saying. And I was like, oh yeah, definitely. Forget. And then I was like, oh, I forgot.
We'll come back to it. Maybe that can be the one for coffee and acting podcast.
Yes, let's write that down. Free flow. I think it's a huge
Free flow.
conversation.
I'm reading books about for flow state and stuff all the time, and why we seek it so much as creatives. I think it
Yeah,
gives to us as much as we give to it. That ability, not in a scary way to forget yourself, but that ability to be truly free,
I
almost like as a
agree.
child is. I just find it.
Yeah.
It's why I still act. That's the most wonderful thing about
Yeah,
acting.
it's why a lot of practitioners also make that comparison of like go back to your childhood where you would uh, behave as impulsive as you can do, and that's why impulse and instinct is encouraged on set or on stage,
Yeah,
to the extent of degree that the production is. So if it's screen, obviously it's
yeah,
much.
yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think that's exactly what it is. I mean, true acting is being as viscerally present as possible in the circumstantial reality that you're creating with the others individuals in the room. And that's why you get the best sort of work come through when everybody in the room is trying to tell the same story to the best of its ability.
Yeah.
So when everybody channels that energy and flow into everything works perfect. That's why I say it takes an army as well,
Yes.
because when you have aces on every base, you just pouring pure passion into a project, that's just gonna flourish.
And that for me is where the impulsiveness, but that's where the research and the consistency and the 10,000 hours of practice. So the focus puller, for instance, when the actor gets a moment that they need to whip their head quickly, the focus puller knows their craft so well that they almost can anticipate it, and they've got
Yeah,
that dead in there as well. The director realizes that something's magical that's happening, so they let the cameras keep rolling.
yeah.
Everybody is a master of their craft, because then when you have that discipline of practice, you're able to be truly free. I don't know if that just sounds super pretentious, but that's what I'm going
No,
to go
I
with.
completely agree with you. No, genuinely. The DOP then has to trust that the focus puller will do that as well. So there's trust involved. There's that letting go, and then everybody in their um cog, if you will, of the
Yes,
machinery works to the best of their ability and as relaxed as possible.
this is exactly right. Everybody's collaboratively trusting of each other that they know what they're doing.
But that, and we are and painfully aware, is an ideal world.
Yes, yes, exactly.
That's the most
But
ideal.
that's why we do it so much, right? To get those perfect moments, those beautiful moments as well.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, then. So we have done the Last Samurai. Oh, what was your do you have a favorite scene from the Last Samurai as well?
You know what? My favorite scene probably is when he wakes up
Oof.
in Japan. That just I feel like and I say that so many actually good scenes. The scene when he's doing that trio sword fight
Yeah.
in the town square. But when he wakes up, I like that scene because it's a stark contrast to like the what we've been exposed to in the beginning of the film, and it feels like a brand new start, even for us, the audience. And if you're as into the story as a lot of people are, you're in there with him, so it's that's this you get this feeling and sensation as well as just watching a film. It elicits emotion in you, and I feel like that is memorable for people when they feel emotion, when they feel something, and that's why I try to achieve that in my performances to instead to make an impact.
Amazing. That's amazing. For me, it's when the guy that gets his hair cut, the archer, when he makes his last stand.
Yeah,
Every
yeah,
time, thank you, cry. The Hans Zimmer's music, the way he sort of knows that he's on a losing battle, but he's dying with honor. I was like, "Ugh,"
man.
every time.
Oh man, when they stop the machine guns at the end voluntarily.
Oh,
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 no spoiler alerts.
it gets you right in the feels every time. So talk, oh Christ, talk about getting in the feels now, Jesus. The comedy that is Interstellar. What an incredible film. One director's continuation, fascination with time, and what an amazing film this is. Hans Zimmer again, correct?
Hans Zimmer again.
Yeah.
He's always there.
So
You can
why?
always circle it back to Hans Zimmer somehow.
Yeah, they do, don't they? I mean, I could say why Interstellar, but like Last Samurai, why not Interstellar? An absolutely amazing film.
Why not? Yeah. Definitely, definitely. It's one of my favorites, especially because I'm obsessed with sci-fi. I'm obsessed with space.
Mm,
I'm obsessed with time.
yeah,
I'm obsessed with twists. I'm obsessed with just good acting,
yeah,
uh, visuals. It had everything for me.
yeah,
Um, the performances as well. Like to make such an impactful and layered story about characters and relationships
yeah.
through time and space. It's like yeah, it hits my G spot,
Yeah, no,
honestly.
actually it was a lot like a film that came out recently, The Creator, which I know not everyone's a massive
Yeah,
fan of. I was,
I
but
enjoyed
it
it.
was one of those worlds where you could only have so much time in. Oh, I've done a pun there, but you can only have so much time in Interstellar. But I felt that I could have stayed in it longer because there were so many things
Yeah,
they sort of brushed through, like why the Earth was dying, going on
yeah,
the planet where time moves so fast.
yeah,
The I don't want to spoil it. Everyone must have seen it, but anyway, Matt Damon's character and
yeah.
his story and stuff as well. There was so many avenues you could have gone down and told a longer story, and it was all incredible. There was a movie on every part of it.
I completely agree. And that bit when um they come back off that planet, Anne Hathaway and Matthew
Oh,
McConaughey, and the gentleman on the spacecraft was like, "It's been 23 years." And they go, no, it's just been, I've waited 23 years for you guys to come back. My God.
by
Wait
himself.
by himself, man, as well. 23 years, man.
Yeah.
I'm
Oh,
like, you just fat because and I love it how they just then move on. Like you
yes,
said, do you know what I mean? They touch on so many things and then do the main story, but then you're like, what about that?
yes,
Like that is and that's something that I've noticed in a lot of incredible storytelling that I've uh, been exposed to. Like, for example, there's a new anime came out just recently called Scavenger's Reign.
mm,
Some of the most beautiful storytelling I've ever seen. And it's like it does exactly that. In the span of a minute or so, because the scenes are very short, it sets up and tells and establishes a whole another storyline and
wow,
then never touches on it. And so it's a I guess, an anthology to create a whole stemming storyline, an anthology of these hugely impactful moments in people's lives, moment to moment. And you just sat there watching it like, my God, including, I don't know, I'm ranting about another thing now, but
No, no,
including
no, please do. I'm going to
another,
check it out later on.
you have to check it out. Like, honestly, like, even just the opening credits tell you the whole backstory you need to know for for the setup of the series, and it's like 30 seconds.
Do you feel with like Interstellar as well though that this shows such a maturity and confidence in the storytelling as well, that yeah, we could have gone down one of these side tunnels, so to speak, but that it has such a propulsive narrative, they can just keep traveling on, it's so rich and so dense and so layered, and maybe that's the point of it as well. Me and you could talk about why the earth was dying and how they're sort of like automatic harvesters and stuff, and why earth's being poisoned, but that's it. It's encouraging the debate. It gives you a thinking point, but then that's not the story. So we'll talk about that later. But meanwhile, we need to get on our question McGonaghy here.
And people talk about it then off screen,
Yes.
and
And I
that's
love
where
the open-ended nature as well. We don't know
yeah.
that, and I think that's wonderful as well. I do love a beginning and a middle and an end, but I also love these films where it's like you've met this character and they've already lived a life, and after we stop watching them, they've still got something else to do. And it's not about leading to a sequel. It's just understanding that, again, time, we're with these characters for a short amount of time. We will learn the tale and the message they need to tell, but then they're going to carry on. Again, such a richness of character, script writing, and story
Mm.
and acting.
And Hans Zimmer.
And Hans Zimmer just absolutely, and a bookcase, which,
Oh man.
how did, I mean, obviously, I would love to ask you your favorite scene on that as well, but of the, like, Nolan is a master of some crazy ass twists and stuff as well, or some very strange metaphors. How did you feel about the bookcase?
Um, I remember I had mixed emotions.
Mm,
I was both overjoyed and devastated at the same time. So it was incredible how it elicited that sort of emotion in me, and it did that numerous times throughout the film, and also the devastating emotional scenes of when he sees her again at the end,
yeah.
and she's of old age, and heartbreaking because I feel like in those moments Christopher Nolan gives you the opportunity in the time span of the scene to just fathom what it is has gone on as
Mm,
well. I think that's important. There's just enough time for us to, I guess, nu think about the circumstances that we're watching, but then just not long enough for us to be satisfied. So we want more.
yeah.
Does that make sense?
No, completely. And yeah, I just think Nolan is a like Memento. I mean, there's so many of his films deal with unreliable narrators or fractured narrative or some sort of a concept, but they never feel, they've never gone the way of just doing a gimmick for gimmick's sake. There is a reason that, like, you watch that story back, and whether it's sort of out of sequence or there is time jumps, or there is always a humanity there, an authenticity, a passion. And I think none more so with this one. I mean, ultimately, it is, yeah, there's a big thing about time, but it's also about relationships. It's about love and connection, and how that transcends time. And going to
Yeah.
get emotional talking about it in a minute, but it's just like, yeah, the way he manages to relay that, and the acting manages to relay that in a big, blockbuster is incredible. It's one of those ones that I love to see, because I love mid-budget films, experimental films, short films where you're posing a concept, but when someone gets through and they're able to put those concepts into a big budget film so it gets seen by a lot of people and it resonates, that's like a winner for me, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah, yeah, like Killers of the Flower Moon as well. I don't know if you've seen that. Have you seen
I
it?
have, in the cinema, that was a big fun.
Oh, big one, chunky.
Yes. but luckily my cinema does an interval halfway through the film, which was
Oh, really? Good,
yeah.
good that you mentioned that, actually. I was going to ask you what your thoughts are of that. Some cinemas did that. Well, to do an interval. How was your
I
experience of it?
right, okay, two things. I love the cinema because it puts you into a setting like going to the theater, where for the most part, if you go to the right cinemas, you're not checking your phone. You are here. You are meant to be here. You are meant to watch this. And whether you love it or you don't love it, this is an event. This is why you turned up. So you're focused, you're being, as we talk about acting, you're here to
Mm,
be in the moment. Um, that being said, I like not having to be taken out of the moment to need a pee. So
mm.
having having the interval, okay, sometimes it breaks it a little bit, but in order, I'm going to name drop me the Cinema in the Woods. In all the time I've been in that cinema, they have never cut the film at a point where it doesn't make me excited to go straight back in, or it takes me out of it. That there are certain films
Yeah.
that I've seen, like Blade Runner, that if it had a cut in it, I don't know. I feel very immersed in the world, but for the most part, I've never really been too broken up about an interval. How do you feel about intervals in
Well,
cinema?
that's a good point you make, because I've heard a lot of people say um that the purpose of the film being so long um was so that people could experience it in its entirety. And I'm just
Mm,
playing devil's advocate here, because actually, now that you mention your, reasoning behind it, I agree. Like, why wouldn't you? Not that I, advocate for it all the time, but
mm,
to have it, why not? Why not have an interval? Because you do in many shows on the West End, or in theater. And I know that Martin Scorsese himself said, you're able to sit through, you're able to sit through 3 hours, 3.5 hours of a show. Why not a movie? Do
mm.
you know what I mean? So like, I feel it's been my feeling that it's been purposeful on his part to make it so long. Because I mean the story was fantastic, the acting even better.
Mm.
Logistically, yeah, it could have been shortened, but
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 that's
but that would but that wouldn't be telling the story that Martin Scorsese would have wanted to tell.
it's as long
He
as it needed to
wanted
be.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
No,
But the fact that,
I very
well,
rarely read reviews now, because if something interests me, I'll go and see it. And a Scorsese film is invariably going to make me interested to go and see it. Like when I went to see Silence and stuff like that. Are they
yeah,
long? Yes, but that's part of the nature of the story. The thing is, as well, I think because Killers of the Flowers Moon is so new, I don't want to spoil it too much, but it is a generational film. So
mm,
you have to realize the magnitude of what's going on, and this has to take time to be
yeah,
told, because there is such a level of significant violence and significant betrayal and destruction of
cultural
a culture.
significance.
You need
Yeah,
it to be that long. I loved
yeah,
it. I thought it was fantastic. I thought The
agreed.
Irishman, to be honest with you, in my opinion, I enjoyed The Irishman, but I did need a break from that. Killers of the Flower Moon, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was incredible. It was as long as
I
it
agree.
completely agree with what you said, as long as it needed to be. And I loved some of the turns in it as well, especially the strange ending. I love the ending of it.
I know, without giving anything away.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was so very I guess original, but why not? It's like, yeah, it's
I love
um
the fact that if you when it's all said and done, and I watch back, we're talking about a filmmaker now who wasn't even in the pics, but when we look back at Scorsese throughout his whole career, I think
yeah,
yes, he's known for this the visceral violence of like a Taxi Driver, but then going into his tracking shots of a Goodfellas or a Casino, and now the sort of quieter films he's making now, like Silence or Killers of the Flower Moon or the Irishman to a degree, but his style has changed so much as well, and his pacing and his anger. He's a character in himself. His
yeah.
movies, the way he enunciates in movies, has changed so much as well. It's an incredible thing to watch.
What a beautiful way to put it as well. That was awesome what you just said.
Um,
I know, I really enjoyed that. Nah, it took me on a journey, and I couldn't agree more. I'm agreeing with you all evening. You're gonna look back on this podcast, it's just me going, I agree, I agree, I agree.
well, no,
But,
I love the way you are curious about life, and the way you were talking about acting and how and being and how your journey has led you here. Like you always, uncovering this treasure, and the way you can vocalize it is absolutely fascinating to me. That's why I'm so glad you decided to come onto the podcast, mate.
Yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool you should mention that too. What, because that's what I'm taking as well from Martin Scorsese. He's kind of from that vantage point as well. I love what he does about the fight scenes and the violence that he portrays in his films. It in and of itself is unromanticized.
Mm,
Like he doesn't do these massive gun shoots and like, oh, somebody gets injured. He shoots somebody, they stay exactly where they are and just fall to limp. And
mm,
you see that, and somebody gets stabbed, they just kind of fall lifeless to the ground, which is how it would be.
yes.
So he's creating hugely. Well, I don't know how. I've never seen anybody in life, but it would be what I imagined it would be more
Yeah.
realistic. I've never actually seen that occur, thankfully.
I
Um,
I just love the fact that this is a man that has made Wolf of Wall Street. Like, you could show someone Wolf of Wall Street, and then in the
yeah.
same moment you could show them Killers of the Flower Moon and go, same director. Just
Yeah.
it's like, and
Yeah.
actually same lead actor as well. How is that working? You know.
Mad, mad. And I
Well,
don't think. Go on. I was
no,
going to
no,
say
go, please
Leonardo
do, please. You go
DiCaprio
ahead.
and Robert De Niro. They've worked with each other on other
Oof.
stuff, but with Martin Scorsese, did they work with each other? No, not Martin Scorsese. They did The Audition in 2015, which is
Yes,
a
yeah.
short film about them, you know, vying for a role. Um, but they were
Yeah,
talking about doing their first film together in reality.
it's yeah, and it's just like, just when a director finds their muse, so to speak, or they find an actor that they can use again and again. But also, I'm always amazed. I mean, facially, unless they go for a lot of prosthetics, they're going to look similar. But how, like, just DiCaprio, his physicality in Killers of the Flower
Mhm.
Moon, and his mouth's turned down for most of it, and you compare that to how he is in Wolf of Wall Street with his,
Mm.
big dick energy is the best way I can call it.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
such
yeah.
just such like, everything is so considered and nuanced. It's just, oh yeah. Well, I could wax lyrical about all film all
Yeah,
night.
literally. Just
But
get on and
listen,
keep
mate,
doing this.
thank you so much. We've done the hour, we've done a little bit over the hour actually, and I really appreciate your time and your insights. I do think there's another one in us at some point as well. We're gonna definitely have
Agreed.
to do another
Coffee
catch
and
up at some point. But before I let you go, I will have to say as well, where can people follow you? And Revolution X, if I remember that rightly, I will say quickly now, it's an absolutely phenomenal trailer that blew me away. So I can't wait to see the finished film. So where
thank
can
you,
people
man.
follow you, get to know you a little bit better, and check everything out,
Well,
mate?
yeah, man, I appreciate that because I actually made that trailer myself, so I'm quite proud of that one
It's
because
incredible.
captivates the story, I think. But Revolution X, yeah, it should be coming to streaming services February 2024. It's in the middle of doing festival runs, and then it's got US and Canada distribution, which
Amazing.
is awesome. So that's under works of being processed. But you can find information on that on my Instagram. Ruggero Barlaba is my handle. It's my name, first name and last name, and yeah, that's where any news of upcoming projects come or projects that I've worked on. So
It's where I tend to stick for all my needs, branding needs and stuff now as well. Good old
so true.
Insta.
Yeah, exactly.
Listen, mate, all joking aside, it's been an absolute pleasure. You've not only encompassed three amazing films, we've just absolutely had a real good chat about creativity in life as well, and coffee, which I want to delve into more of you as well soon. So
Yeah, sounds like a
uh,
plan.
thank you. So the last film talks about it. I want to thank you so much, or the second last film. Thank you so much for your time, mate.
Thank you very much for having me.
All the best. See you again. All right.
All the best.
Bye bye.
Likewise. Bye bye.